Hey friends, in today's video I'm talking about my day 1 raid experience with King's Fall, so if you don't want any raid spoilers, obviously don't click on this video or any previous ones that are very clearly titled King's Fall. So, thoughts on the day 1 raid. This was a Destiny 1 raid, recently refreshed in Destiny 2, and contest mode was on, which meant that once you hit the minimum amount of light level it asked, or power level it asked of you, then you cannot over level it. So if it asks for 1560, doesn't matter if you're 1570, doesn't matter if you're 1580, you are still going to be scaled down to whatever number it puts you at. That's what makes contest mode special, because it makes PvE enemies hit a little bit harder and take a lot more damage before they go down. It definitely makes a lot of the elements of the PvE sandbox start to matter. I'm definitely going to say some positive things today, but I am going to say some negative things, a little bit about King's Fall, but mostly about the PvE sandbox. So if you're currently enjoying Destiny 2, don't let me ruin that for you. It's okay to have differing opinions, whatever floats your boat. I'm just going to talk about why I maybe don't enjoy Destiny PvE right now and why I prefer PvP. I do have some raid footage. I released a video yesterday of the Warpriest challenge, so go ahead and watch that if you want to see what me playing PvE looks like. But I decided to just throw some old PvP footage in the background while I talk about the King's Fall raid. To start, let's talk about contest mode, and rather the lack of contest mode after day 1. This is my biggest gripe with PvE, especially day 1 raids. I feel like contest mode is normal mode to me. That is what the game is supposed to play like, because it makes your loadout, your build decisions matter. It makes you have to care about extra damage perks or extra survivability perks. You don't just throw on any old loadout and mow through the content like you would in almost any other circumstance, maybe outside of a GM. And yes, I am talking about the Witch Queen campaign too. You completely roll through that if you just go to Dares of Eternity, get a Gjallarhorn, and hold forward with Gjallarhorn using the rally flag to refill at every section. You normally have enough ammo to not even care about the mechanics, enemy density, or any target prioritization. You barely have to stay alive because the entire room dies. So, color me surprised when Bungie was at their Lightfall reveal, I think that's what the expansion's called, and one of the employees said something along the lines of 2 out of 3 players played through the legendary campaign in Witch Queen. And anytime someone says a sentence like that, my brain finishes the other half of the sentence. And so what I thought I was going to hear in this Lightfall showcase was 2 out of 3 players played through the Witch Queen campaign on legendary. So we're about to crank that difficulty up in Lightfall. No, that's not what they said. They didn't say that. So they just said they want to make another legendary campaign, which to me makes it sound like this legendary campaign is status quo. And I know you clicked on here for a raid opinion, but I'm getting to it. I'm working up to why I maybe didn't like some things about the raid and why I did like some things about the raid. We can start with one of the big likes, which was Warpriest. Specifically the challenge version of Warpriest, where you had to extend your damage phase buff within 5 seconds. So this required a lot of team coordination and especially put a lot of extra weight on 1 or 2 players. So the other remaining 4 are pretty much responsible for normal damage rotations, and I imagine they're very bored while the other 2 learn to do their job as well as possible. And it's also dependent on RNG. So sometimes you get a very favorable spawn, sometimes you don't. Sometimes Warpriest stands fairly still, and other times he's hitting the strafe harder than a 10 mobility Stompy Hunter. But anyway, the damage window was so tight that I imagine Warpriest was the bottleneck for a lot of teams getting the contest mode completion or not. Like I said, contest mode makes things in Destiny matter that normally don't. And especially a tight DPS window on a contest mode raid means that every little percent of damage matters. Every millisecond of that damage phase matters. And the faster your team can identify something that saves time or adds damage, the more likely you are to succeed. So that's why I like the Warpriest encounter. Every other encounter kind of fell over once you understood the mechanics. And in my opinion, understanding the mechanics is more than half the battle in these day one raids. It honestly feels like I'm playing a puzzle game, because this is the part of the video where if you're a diehard PvE player who enjoys the game, you should probably just click out of the video and forgot you heard any of this. I think that our player characters in Destiny 2 are too powerful. We are power crept to oblivion. Let me paint this picture for you. Anytime that we had to wipe to reset an encounter, I had to go to my menu and switch to a rocket launcher so I could shoot the floor. Why? Because if I stood out in the open with no cover, didn't shoot anything, none of the ads could kill me. I was invincible. And that's not an exaggeration. My character is literally invincible. And you would think in the scheme of MMOs that this would come at some sort of a trade-off, but apparently I can also kill the entire room worth of ads by myself. Not an exaggeration, by the way. You put a barricade at a door, sunspot that same barricade, enemy walks out, gets blinded by barricade, cooked by sunspot, slowed by barricade. That gives you a variety of bonuses to better loop abilities. Then you just dump your special ammo on other things, instantly blind them as they leave a door, or instantly headshot them with armor-piercing rounds, try to collat everything on a pre-spawn, and then you purposely aim to the body for one of them, loop a special finisher, a Aeon power ammo brick, something like that, get your whole team back to speed with their ammo for a future DPS phase, and that's just me by myself. If I'm efficient at my job, all 5 of my teammates are bored. Like, they can put the controller down and just let me go to work for 30 seconds before we even need to think about doing mechanics. And that 30 seconds added up over the course of entire Destiny 1 Day 1 raids gets so boring. Overall, my main PvE complaint is the strength of our player characters compared to the difficulty offered. As far as the most effective PvE builds are concerned, they don't really have any trade-offs. They are borderline invincible. They always have more than par damage available to kill a boss in the necessary amount of rotations before it enrages. And above all, I don't really feel rewarded for skill because everything seems to be easy to execute for Destiny veterans, or at least this is my opinion. And someone, again, might not have listened to my warning, might not understand this is an opinion, and say, well, why didn't you get worlds first then? Saltagrepo had it 3 times. Congratulations to them. They are seriously very talented PvE players. They study every single micro adjustment that you can make to improve, and they're the best at it. Why didn't I have a better placement in day 1? I'm going to let Sides recap that for you. Shout out to twitch.tv/Sides.
Who the fuck decided, oh yeah, we're gonna sit here and watch other people complete this encounter and not say a word when Sides' team is on 6 Izanagi's burdens, absolutely violating, hitting every single shot, and we're the ones who, like, how does a team play so good that they lose?
High risk or softlock?
How is that? We use Arbalist, and we just get it done in 2 tries. We use Izanagi's burden, we're stuck for 4 hours?
So yeah, the reference Sides is making in this video for the King's Fall recap is that we were stuck on Golgoroth for multiple hours due to no fault of our own. We decided to go Izanagi's Burden because it's one of the few things in PvE that can push your damage up just that ever so slightly more if you know how to manage your downtime correctly so that you always have your burst up when damage is up. And it just nukes things. Of course, the trade-off being that you have to aim for 1 single shot, and that could be easier than an entire magazine when you have to deal with flinch and whatnot. Of course, the punishment for missing is quite great, but knowing that I'm loading into King's Fall with a full PvP team means we have to leverage the one advantage that we actually train on, which is trusting your teammate to hit that shot, and if they miss it, whatever, we're gonna wipe and run it again because we need that extra damage. So, what happened on Golgoroth? Turns out, if you use Izanagi's Burden on Golgoroth, Golgoroth will softlock and you cannot continue the encounter. And we were stuck with this for multiple hours, and it's a meme at this point, but I'm still not over it. It was a great day 1 experience. There were so many funny things that happened, so many funny things said. Like during the Oryx fight, I was torn in the other dimension, running across plates. Suddenly, a plate disappears and reappears, and my character is stuck in the plate. So I'm like, help me, step bro. Help me, step Sides, because I'm above Sides' plate. And when I think about those sort of things, especially in the middle of the night a couple years from now, I'm going to crack up laughing. And so for that reason, Day 1 raids are worth it because hundreds of those scenarios are going to come up and they are going to be memorable. It's such a good time. But unless you're in contention for getting a world's first or a very high placing, I wouldn't overdo the preparation for a raid, because you can almost burn yourself out to the point where I am with PvE, where you just don't even enjoy the base game as it stands. Of course, what could remedy that is maybe some of the harsh edges of these really powerful PvE builds be ironed out just a little bit to require harder execution for that type of reward, and or having contest mode as an option always, just so I can choose to do that raid. And I think this especially will help me in the future, because if I see a day 1 raid coming up, I could just ask a group of people if they want to do progression raids. Just meet up on Thursday for an hour, 2 hours on Friday, and just keep going until we complete it. No stress, no none of that, just enjoying the game. But I'm going to keep it real here. If it were possible to activate contest mode across the game, or even just for the raids as a selectable option, I feel like that would have been done by now. So instead of screaming into the void hoping something changes, I just spend my time elsewhere when it comes to PvE games. And within Destiny, you know me, I'm a PvP diehard. I like that a human opponent can adapt and always show up with a new challenge. And even when the sandbox is bad, it's still, comparatively to PvE in its best state, a better experience in my opinion. So that's just where I spend my time. I am intrinsically motivated to play PvP because every time I learn a new skill, that's mine forever. I just get to do that now. I get to shoot trip mines out of the air and spike somebody for sitting behind cover and not taking a duel. I get to do that now because I practiced it. I don't need an endgame reward. I don't need a raid day 1 emblem. None of that. I just play because I enjoy improving. And since my human opponent can improve too, it's a never-ending battle of replayability. Of course, I always like when the sandbox promotes higher skill playstyles to be higher rewarding, rather than lower skill playstyles being highly rewarding. The PvP sandbox could really just use improvement at times is what I'm saying, and I think that's very obvious and almost doesn't need to be said. But this is a PvE video. I hope you understand where I'm coming from here. When PvE becomes very monotonous and sort of plays itself, you savor contest mode raids to the point where it's almost FOMO because they go away. But before I go on too much of a tangent, let's really stay true to the title of this video. Let's review King's Fall. In my opinion, contest mode is the normal difficulty, and I wish that the remix version trimmed more of the fat, like the auto-scroller sections, the monotonous ad clearing sections of this raid, or at least the PvE sandbox was scaled down to meet it, or the raid was scaled up to meet the sandbox. One of the two. Something like that had to happen so that it's interesting for the minute-to-minute parts of the raid, and not just that one difficulty spike, which is really just mechanical bound. It's the same problem I had with it in Destiny 1, where I'm kind of just sitting around not doing anything, waiting for the next part to happen, and I realized 2 hours went by because someone made a very simple mistake on a 15-minute encounter. At its worst, it feels like I'm playing a glorified puzzle-solving game instead of an action-RPG MMO FPS. It really doesn't. The execution just is not there, and I really want to hammer this in. Aesthetic-wise, art team, music team, sound team, always knock it out of the park. They do a phenomenal job. But I find myself not really being lost in the moment in King's Fall because all the tasks that I'm supposed to do in this raid seem kind of arbitrary, and it doesn't even really feel like I'm fighting Oryx at time, even though they made the one big change to make it so that detonating the bombs causes a damage phase at Oryx instead of just being the damage. This is why I really like the Rolk fight, because at a certain point you are in the arena with Rolk versus all the other bosses in Destiny 2 kind of just staring at you menacingly and not even being a threat. It's just the ultimate wipe mechanic for not doing some arbitrary task. And maybe this commentary today was just a realization that maybe I just don't like raiding, and I think that's okay. But if things were to change to where I do like raiding, I think the future raids would have to have more of an emphasis on action, execution, engagement, and then the overall PvE sandbox maybe has to have a higher ceiling on builds with appropriate reward for that, rather than having these, I'll call them easy to accomplish but do everything builds. Because if raids are going to require multiple people, but we're all going to show up with these builds that do everything, why is the raid just not solo? Like for instance, this might be eye-opening for you here, but I never hear anyone in regards to PvE say, oh, that's Cammy, he's a cracked Revenant hunter. They call him Cammy Cakes. The CC stands for crowd control, and he's one of the best at it. He basically enables us to do a comfortable damage phase without getting hit by a single ad. He really does keep the whole field frozen. No, nobody says that. What they say is, hey Cam, throw on Well of Radiance and Starfire Protocol. That's the most meta damage strat right now. Don't worry about the whole room shooting at us. We're going to survive it anyway. oh, don't worry about the weapons either, because just the fusion grenades are enough damage. And I could list a bunch of PvE builds that are kind of the same thing, where they don't have any sort of reasonable trade-off for the level of versatility that they bring to the table, and it's always more than enough. And then this problem is compounded by having the AI not even be difficult in terms of aggressiveness, health, or density. There's just not enough of them. Like, we're often at odds between our own team trying to activate these perk engines that can do everything because there's not enough ads to go around sometimes. Like, ads are almost seen more as like mobile health packs and damage boosters than they are supposed to be a threatening space alien. And also, the attention that the ads give players is seemingly random. It's like proximity sound based more than it is a specific system. Like, I feel like Titans or some sort of 3.0 specialization, maybe Solar can be the one that attracts attention of ads so that at least there's some predictability to these encounters. Because if we had like super lethal ads that always hit their shots and their aggro was random, then sometimes in an encounter, a teammate would just get insta-deleted, and there's not really anything you can do to prevent that, so that's not as fun. But it also opens the floodgates for, again, another specialization of taking aggro of key enemies and maybe the room, using abilities, you know? Showing off the abilities in a skillful manner that helps the team. When is it best to take aggro? How do you keep aggro without dying? Oh, you might need a healer to show up and keep you healthy, using their abilities for your benefit, since it is greater than using their abilities on themselves. And then this opens up the opportunity for maybe crowd control to come in, because the density is too high. There's just too many lethal ads for one player to realistically aggro and another player to realistically heal. So now crowd control needs to come in and pause some ads on certain sides of the room so everybody can do their task. And while that's happening, oh look, the boss is able to be damaged, but we've already dedicated 3 support roles, so we need someone to swing in and do some major damage. Oh look, someone who specialized in a mega damage build. Thank you, DPS. Let me support you by bolstering your damage numbers even further. Oh, but this damage window is too tight. We need even more damage. Dun da da da, here comes the Sunderer. Alright, DPS, my best Sunder is like a melting point window from the throwing knife, so let me quickly borrow some Scorch stacks from everybody. Yes, apply those, huge. I'm gonna hit this ignition. On that ignition, you're gonna get giant damage, so prep your hardest hitting attack. Yeah, Izanagi, great idea. Wait for it. Alright, I built up the stacks, and here goes the knife. If it reflects off a wall, it's a double Sunder. And I hit that shit. Let's go, DPS. Yes, you hit that shit too. Izanagi shot. 10 times damage. Oh my goodness, we are a team. Oh shit, is aggro going for the extension? If he parries the boss stomp, we get an extra 5 seconds. Yes, he hits that shit too. Let's go. Oh no, we're all weak. Oh, healer came in clutch. He used the super. Okay, that aside, let me drag myself back to reality here. It's mostly just like, alright, sit in a well, apply DOT, throw fusion grenade, hit headshot, apply damage bonus from gun. Perfect. Now we have more than enough DPS for this. We didn't even have to do half of that to clear this. That's what it is in Destiny.